Hey, welcome back, Better Call Saul friends. I'm excited to be wearing my brand new University of American Samoa t-shirt, Go Land Crabs, that I got off of Etsy. So now I'm up to 3 Better Call Saul t-shirts, and hopefully I'm just going to keep on buying them until my entire wardrobe is just Better Call Saul stuff. That would be so cool. But today I wanted to talk about really one of the biggest questions that we have remaining, which is, are the showrunners, the actors, the writers, are they going to stick the landing for Better Call Saul? Are they going to finish up this series with really high quality episodes that we've come to know and expect from them over the last 6 seasons? We all know it's really, really tough to finish a great TV show. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And the reason why I bring this up is because I have heard from a number of people in my comments section who have told me that they have not loved or they've even disliked the last 2 Gene episodes, Nippy as well as Breaking Bad. And I want to offer them, in particular, my perspective on how we should be looking at things. And then I also want to share with you 9 different quotes from Peter Gould, the showrunner, co-creator, as well as Bob Odenkirk and Rhea Seehorn as they reflect on the finale. Now, there are 0 spoilers in those quotes. I don't look for spoilers, but if you do not want to hear people that I just named, those 3 people I just named, if you don't want to hear them reflect on the end of the show and the series finale, given that they know what's going to happen, although they're very careful, but they still know what's going to happen, then please do not watch any further. I do not want to mess up this show or how someone likes to watch it because I didn't give fair warning. So you have been warned. We'll get to the quotes later, but let me offer my perspective right now. The first thing that I have to say is I think Better Call Saul is already over. In my mind, Better Call Saul culminated with 3 amazing episodes: Plan and Execution, Point and Shoot, and then Fun and Games. I give both Plan and Execution as well as Fun and Games 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved both of them. Plan and Execution was, as my friend Pete says, shout out to Pete, he said it was perfect television. I completely agree with that. It was a masterpiece, and it was easily one of my top 3 episodes of the entire series, and I will be revisiting that subject later on when the series is done. Now, Fun and Games may not have matched that throughout the entirety of the episode, but that last 20 to 25 minutes of the show where Jimmy and Kim are breaking up in their apartment, where we see their last kiss in the parking garage of HHM, followed by the unexpected but beautifully done transition of Jimmy McGill turning into Saul Goodman. I thought that was, in particular, that last part was a stroke of genius. And so those scenes, as well as that transition, in my mind, are going to go down as one of my favorite moments in TV history of any show of all time. So I absolutely loved that transition and the scene that we had in the apartment. So in terms of answering, how does this nice, affable, sometimes cutting corners guy named Jimmy McGill, how does that character turn into the sleazebag who's over the top? He's kind of a cartoonish figure in Breaking Bad. They have fully answered that question at the end of that episode, Fun and Games. The entire 6 seasons and 9 episodes had been leading up to that point, and then they stuck the landing on that essential question, which spawned this series. How did Jimmy McGill turn into Saul Goodman? I think they nailed that at the end of that episode. Flawlessly done. So in my mind, Better Call Saul has already stuck the landing to the most important question they gave viewers when they started this series, I think 7 or 8 years ago. Now, that does turn us to Gene, though, and the remaining episodes that we have left. To be honest with you, because I don't want to, blow smoke or pretend like everything's perfect, like some people might say about every single episode. They'll just say they love it, and that's, all the commentary that they offer. That's a little boring in my mind, and there's too many people already doing that. So the last 2 Gene episodes in my mind have been a level below those last 3 episodes that I mentioned before, the Plan and Execution, Point and Shoot, and then Fun and Games. So the 2 Gene episodes we've seen, I think they've been really good TV, better than most other things that we see on TV. They have pushed Gene's character forward, which is really important, but it has not lived up to that very, very high level, that 10 out of 10 level that we saw in those 3 previous episodes, at least in my mind. Now, all of that said, we're only halfway through. We're only 2 out of the 4 Gene episodes through that sequence. And to judge it now would be to judge a movie halfway through that movie. And that's how we should be viewing these last 4 episodes, as one entire long episode or one long movie. And in fact, and this is one of the quotes that we'll get to later, so again, another warning, get out of here if you don't want to hear this, but that's actually what Peter Gould has said previously. And I'll put that up on the screen when we get to it, that we need to look at these last 4 Gene episodes as one, as like a continuous episode, and not look at them as 4 isolated episodes. So I am not worried or nervous personally about the final 2 episodes, because we need to view the entire Gene sequence as one entire epilogue. Now, I'm going to transition into those 9 quotes that I mentioned before from Peter Gould, Bob Odenkirk, and Rhea Seehorn. Again, get out of here if you don't want to listen to it. But let's jump into the very first quote. And I should also mention that these quotes give me a lot of optimism that we're going to see a really great finale. So let's go into these quotes right now. The first quote that we're going to read comes from Bob as well as Peter and Ray, and I'll put all of these up on the screen so you can follow along with me, but I will be reading them. So this is a quote starting with Bob. I always wanted the character to grow, and I campaigned for that over the years. My argument to co-creator Vince Gilligan was that sometimes people do learn the right lessons from trauma and challenge in life. They don't always become Walter White. And I'm going to leave it to you to find out whether that is what happened. Co-creator and showrunner Peter Gould added that the upcoming finale was a matter of deciding what's the right place to leave him, and I'm really excited about what we come up with. I love it, and I hope everyone else does too. Now, this is really, really interesting right here. We had no idea how we were going to wrap it up until season 5, and if you watch season 5 closely, later on you'll see the clouds start to part during season 5, and I wouldn't say an ending, but we had an image for where we could go. As it worked out, we came pretty close, but there were a lot of nuances that were very hard won this season. And then Rhea Seehorn added, I could not believe the weaving together of all the storylines and the character stuff that they had to do. As Peter has said, it was quite the Rubik's Cube that he had to figure out. We were stunned. As a cast member, I think we found it alternately shocking and devastating, and sometimes hilariously funny. It's ultimately very, very thought-provoking. I found it to be everything that I'd want as a fan. Now, I don't know about you, but those 3 quotes give me a lot of excitement and confidence that we're going in a really great direction. If you look at Rhea Seehorn's Instagram page, you can tell with their pictures of her and her son on vacation trying to watch Better Call Saul, they are fans of the show. So for Ray, a fan, to say this is everything that she would want as a fan, that gives me a lot of optimism, and I really like everything that I read here in this quote. Let's go on to the second one, a little bit shorter, and this is just going to be Peter Gould. And the writer of this article writes, expect even more surprises as the rest of the season unfolds, as Gould hints at further twists and turns. And then Gould says, my hope is that you'll watch it and be stunned and surprised, and it'll make you think. But that isn't all Gould's hoping for. He says he also hopes you'll have the feeling that I have, which is there's no other way really it could have gone. I really don't know what he means by that. Does it mean jail, death, confession, a life on the run? I don't know. I really don't know. But that, again, also makes me really excited as he says we're going to be stunned and surprised, but then deep down we're going to say, yeah, this is the right ending. Very interesting. The third quote is going to be from Rhea Seehorn, and this is in an interview with Deadline. The interviewer says, with Better Call Saul, one of the rare series to rival or even surpass its mother show, what is the legacy of Better Call Saul for you now? And Ray says, well, I don't know how to answer that. I will enjoy asking you that when you see the whole thing, because don't forget, we still have to see what happened, where Carol Burnett fits in too, and that's a very special story as well. It's nothing but bananas from here on out is what I can say. Let me pause there, because at least for me, these first 2 Gene episodes have not been bananas. I went column on that level yet. So I think we still will see a couple more bananas episodes, and I think it'll be these last two, and that might be what Ray is referencing here. And then she continues, but I think that they raised and answered some big questions in this episode that have been part of the ongoing, more complex themes of the show, and that is, who are we inherently? Are you a sum of your experiences and your relationships, or are you just born good or bad? Questioning your station in life, which is so vital. I think Gene is going to answer these questions at the very end, and that's what I'm really excited about. I did a previous video about, questions that we still need to see in Better Call Saul, and one of them was, who is Jimmy McGill? Is he Jimmy McGill or is he Saul Goodman? Because those are two different people with different morals and ethos, and so that's a question that we still have remaining outstanding on this show, and it seems like we're going to get the answer to it. So I'm really excited to see that. The fourth quote that I have for us is going to come from Peter Gould. And again, this is another interview with Deadline, and they ask Peter, it reads like you guys are taking these final 6 episodes to move the story not just up against the beginning of Breaking Bad, but to another place as well. And Peter says, yeah, I think that's right, Dominic. I have to say, what's happening in these last few episodes, the way it's structured and what it's about, is very different from any TV show that I'm aware of. Just stop right there. Peter's watched a lot of TV. Vince Gilligan has watched a lot of TV. So they're doing something different than what we've seen in Sopranos, in The Wire, in The Shield. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so I don't think that would be an apt comparison. But something different than Breaking Bad, obviously. So something different from all of the great TV shows that we've had the privilege to watch. So that's extremely interesting and exciting, because they're going to try something new. And I gotta say, whenever you take a chance on doing something new, you risk alienating people. You risk making it polarizing, and that's going to make some people not like it. And I think either Peter or Vince has said that the ending is polarizing. I couldn't find that quote, but I've heard that, and I think I read that previously. So something really interesting to think about. Peter continues, I think it's because this is all answering the questions and dealing with the structures that we started with. The fact that this is a prequel and a sequel, and that it's hard. It's the story of a man's journey through life and trying to come to some kind of resolution in himself. So yeah, it's different, that is for sure. There's some super, super exciting stuff yet to come, and also some very funny things yet to come. The last few episodes have not been funny for the most part, but we're not done with the comedy yet. And so I think we have seen some comedy in the Gene scenes. Maybe we'll see a little bit more, but my guess is that maybe the comedy will die off in the next 2 episodes, and we'll get a little more depressing of a couple episodes. Let's go on to the 5th quote, and this is again going to be from Peter Gould. In that Deadline interview, Deadline says, Peter, there is so much you are clearly not going to say now, but what's your point of view this close to the end? And Peter says, I'm so proud of these episodes. I'm so proud of where we landed, but it was certainly a struggle to get there. One of the amazing things about this episode and the great work, it answers a lot of the questions that we started with. And by the way, this is after the Fun and Games episode when Kim and Jimmy break up. Okay, so that's where he's answering this question. So the question that Vincent and I started with at the very beginning was, what kind of problem does becoming Saul Goodman solve? It seems to me that this episode, Fun and Games, comes very close to just answering that question right there. And that's what I said at the beginning of this video. The whole story of Better Call Saul has been answering, how does Jimmy McGill become Saul Goodman? And if you've been watching to figure out how that happens and why it happens, and to understand the story behind there, you should say, I've already got my answer. And I think you should be really happy with the arc that they've shown us about that character's development. And so in answering that question, we've got a great answer, and I'm really excited about what they've done. And that is, I think, 10 out of 10. Just absolutely beautifully done there. But we still got the Gene epilogue, which is, I think, a separate issue, and I think it's a separate way to view it, but that's just me. And obviously, let me know in the comments down below what you think. Now, let's go into the 6th quote. We're getting pretty interesting quotes from Bob Odenkirk. This was from a New York Times profile in February of this year. I did not read the entire thing. I was reading it, and I got to this line, and I was going a little bit further, but then they were describing scenes in the remaining episodes, and I said, boy, I do not want to read that, so I just bookmarked it, and I'm going to read the entire profile when the series is done, because it is a really good profile on Bob. But I did get to this part where Bob reflects on seeing the script for the very first time. And so this is really interesting. So I'll read the whole thing here. Odenkirk stood with Rhea Seehorn at the kitchen island in their house, talking about the finale of Better Call Saul, very carefully because I was there. Odenkirk read Gould's script the night before, and Seehorn did not try to hide her curiosity. You have 13, she asked, eyes wide, referring to the episode number. Do you like it? And then Bob says, it's a lot in there. There's a lot to think about. I think I like it. Man, that's interesting. I think I like it, but I was pretty wiped out when I read it in the middle of the night. I think it's a challenging way to go to finish the series. It's not flashy. It's substantial, and on some level, it's things that I hoped for years in this character's brain. On the other hand, yeah, I have to read it again. But what I like about it is it's not cheap. It's not easy. It does not feel cartoonish. It's pretty great, I think. It's pretty great. I think that's really insightful to be able to see Bob's initial impression reading that script. Yes, he was groggy, and yes, he only had one look through of it. But I thought it was so interesting. He says, I think I liked it. And then he obviously ends the quote with, I think it's pretty great. I think it's pretty great. But those are kind of two different things that he's saying there. But he did have some more time to reflect on it, and I want to go into that on my next quote, and that's going to be the 7th quote that we have, again, about Bob in an LA Times article. And this is Bob speaking here. He says, he's looking back, and Gene, I have to imagine, Gene's looking back on his whole life, and he's asking, do I react the way that my instinct tells me? The same instinct that has landed me in an effing mall in Omaha making cinnamon rolls? Do I keep following that gut? He's still Jimmy McGill. He's still Saul Goodman. I promise you that. But in his growth, he's asking himself, really? Is this all worth it? And you can see in that moment that he can't hold that shit in any longer. He needs to be himself. I love this line because it reminds me of Season 2, Episode 7, Inflatable of Better Call Saul, where Jimmy has just quit Davis and Maine, his nice cushy job, where he was a round peg in a square hole. I think that's the expression. And it just didn't fit. And he forced himself to get fired from that in a really few hilarious scenes, which I've talked about before. And let me play that clip where he's talking to Kim about trying to partner up with him. So let's play that now.
There's no point in me doing this if I can't be myself. Every time I try to do things someone else's way, it blows up in my face. That's what happened at Davis and Maine. Look how that turned out.
I hope you can see the correlation that I see between this quote that Bob has here in this article, as well as the clip that we just saw, which, Bob in the article says he needs to be himself. And then Jimmy says to Kim, this isn't going to work if I can't be myself. I'm tired of playing. I'm tired of trying to pretend to be someone that I'm not. And so that's going to come into place for Gene in these last few episodes. And my prediction all along is that he's going to resign himself to becoming Saul Goodman. He might accept that he's made some terrible mistakes, but he's going to say that this is who I am. That's just my prediction. I don't have any inside information on any of that. So let's go on to our 8th quote, and this is, I think, again, going to stay with Bob. Yeah, we're going to stay with Bob. Let me pull this up right now. And this was from Looper. Some website called Looper had an interview with Bob, and they ask him, Better Call Saul Season 6 seems like it must have been one of the most challenging shoots you've ever been involved in. First, the pandemic delays, then surviving a heart attack. What most keeps you going through all these challenges? And then Bob says the interest in the character and what would happen to him. I'm not a writer on the show. I don't know what's going to happen next. but I've gotten to know this guy and care about him over the years. I was very curious where he was headed, and I could not tell where he was headed. I had my hopes, but where the show went greatly satisfied me. Where the show went satisfied me greatly. It fulfilled some of my hopes and also did some things that I did not expect, because that's what they always do. So this is an article in an interview that was a couple months after the February New York Times article where Bob says, I think I like it. So after a couple months of reflecting on it, he says that the show satisfied him greatly, how we ended Gene's character. So that gives me a little bit more optimism that Bob is more optimistic about how this is going to end than his initial reaction from that New York Times article. And then my very last quote, we're going to stick with Bob, is going to be, I actually can't remember where this is from, but they were talking about when Breaking Bad was finishing, Gilligan and Gould had the same idea of having a Saul spinoff, but Odenkirk needed convincing. He said the main problem was trying to make the characters likable. I don't like Saul Goodman. He's the kind of person I would avoid with his situational ethics. I don't particularly like that kind of view on things. Better Call Saul's masterstroke was to shift from Goodman's comic relief to his multi-layered persona as Jimmy McGill, a man trying and often failing to do the right thing as he slowly descends into the moral black hole. And then Bob says, I like him a lot. I'll miss that character. I don't think there's a better written character on TV anywhere. Completely agree, Bob. From Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman to the anger and regret of Gene Takovic, absolutely superb acting job and amazing character development. Bob gushes about the forthcoming finale. A difficult job, wonderfully done. So, my friends, those are 9 different quotes that we've heard from the showrunner as well as the actors who are very, very excited about where this is going to go. Yes, I think there's going to be some people in our comment section, on the Pete Pepper Live section, who are not going to like it. I think that's going to happen. I am personally really optimistic, and I think they will stick the landing. And in terms of what this means in the very end, I think there's going to be a reckoning of who Jimmy McGill really is. He's going to come to face with his decisions. I'm not sure what the result is going to be, but we're going to dig deeper into his character and come to terms with who he is. And for me, that's the biggest remaining question that the show has to answer. And after listening to these actors and the writers reflect on it, I think we're in for a great ending. We've already seen them land the plane, I think the expression is, for Better Call Saul and how Jimmy McGill becomes Saul Goodman. And I think soon they will do the same for Gene Takovic and the overall arc of Saul Goodman and Jimmy McGill. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you agree that they're going to nail this ending, or if you disagree with anything that I say, please let me know. And if you did like this video, please like and subscribe so I can keep on making this stuff for you guys. I will talk to you next time. Bye.